So it's funny because, everybody and their uncle will hang a deer, right? To tenderize it and to improve its flavor, etc. But for some reason, waterfowl hunters don't really age birds much anymore. Upland hunters who hunt turkeys and grouse, etc. don't age their birds much anymore. And it's a shame. It's a long lost art and science. This same technique and these same principles apply to pretty much any bird. It could not be easier. All you got to do is understand the hows and the whys a little bit. Two really important things start to happen. If you love tender meat, you haven't been eating them right all along if you're not doing this process or something similar. Stick around, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about aging birds. So back in the day, hunters used to hang a bird by the head until the body fell off. And that signaled that the aging process was done and that bird was ready for the table. So it's funny because, everybody and their uncle will hang a deer, right? To tenderize it and to improve its flavor, etc. But for some reason, waterfowl hunters don't really age birds much anymore. I find that upland hunters who hunt turkeys and grouse, etc. don't age their birds much anymore. And it's a shame. It's a long lost art and science that could apply even to you if you're a guy that has maybe a small farm where you raise birds for your family. This same technique and these same principles apply to pretty much any bird. It could not be easier. It's a one-step process. All you got to do is understand the hows and the whys a little bit, and you can apply this technique to pretty much any bird that flies for the table. So first things first, let's start at the beginning. The whole process begins with assessing the bird. I wouldn't even recommend this technique unless the bird was cleanly killed. What do I mean by that? This particular bird is going to be aged because I got a really good, nice, clean headshot. You see the pellet penetration in here and a little bit here in the neck. That's what you want, a cleanly killed bird. Basically, in other words, you should be inspecting all along, especially this area and the side of the bird, for pellets that may have pierced into the gut. So basically, you're not going to be aging a gut shot bird. I'll get into this a little bit later on, but you're going to have made a few holes if you gut shot the bird. That's going to allow bacteria into the inside of the bird where things spoil very quickly. As long as that bird isn't gut shot, it's a candidate for aging. Then once you've made that determination that that bird was killed nice and clean and there's no holes and spots where they shouldn't be, or at least not too many of them, then you're going to hang them by the neck in ideal temperatures. What does that mean? Well, between 0 and 4 degrees Celsius, or about 33.5 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. If you're down in the States or another place that uses imperial measurement, think of it as being between 32 and 40. And guys, that ideal temperature range is the whole ball game when you're aging any kind of meat, whether it be a duck or a deer or a beef even. People don't realize that most of the beef that you've ever eaten in a restaurant or that comes from a grocery store has been hanging in those ideal temperatures for a good long time to improve its flavor and its tenderness and its overall quality, etc. So why don't we do it with birds? Well, people used to. I think the reason more hunters don't properly age their waterfowl and their upland birds, etc., is because we've been fed a really steady media diet of, bacteria is scary. It'll hurt you. It can make you sick. And while all of that is true, if you're not doing things correctly, it doesn't mean you should shy away from putting those good bacteria, and there are good bacteria, to work for you. So let's talk a little bit more about that temperature range. If you're hanging a bird below 32 degrees Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius, you're not aging that bird. You're just allowing it to freeze. Okay? Now, if you're hanging a bird above 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius, you risk meat spoilage, and it's a real risk. So you have to be very careful about that window and staying in it when you're hanging any kind of animal, and especially a bird, especially smaller animals. We'll talk more about this as the video goes on, but basically, the bigger the thing is, the longer you can age it, and the smaller the thing is, the less time it really needs to get nice and tender and flavorful. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We have to talk a little bit more about that window because I get a lot of questions about this, especially over on my Instagram, because every single bird I've shot for years has been hung and properly aged. I've never had a single problem with it, but people are skeptical, and I understand that, so I want to explain it to you. Now, I get a lot of questions about fluctuation in temperature, and I want to address this right now. It's an important concern, and I don't blame anybody for having it. When you're hanging a bird outdoors, or like I do a lot of times in my little porch that's not heated, it's not temperature controlled, let's say, or you're not doing it in a fridge, and that's a really good hack I'm going to get to in a bit, so hang on. You should be concerned about it, but not overly concerned about it. If you're hanging a bird and the temperature goes above 40 degrees Fahrenheit or 4 degrees Celsius, you should be conscious of it. You should keep a close eye on it, but it doesn't mean your bird is wrecked, okay? If it goes up over that temperature by just a degree or two, maybe for an hour, maybe a few hours even, and then maybe it drops down below that temperature, below 0 or 32 degrees Fahrenheit at nighttime, it doesn't mean you've frozen your bird solid and that you've wrecked your aging process or anything. It just means maybe it'll take a little bit longer, or maybe it'll go a little bit faster if your temperatures are warm, etc. And a little bit, not a lot, a little bit of fluctuation is okay. Just don't go crazy with it, and you don't have to be too worried about it. And while we're on the subject, here's my little outside beer fridge, or AKA game aging fridge. You can see it's empty this time of year because a lot of times I'm just stuffing game in here because I live in Canada, in central Ontario. It's often just way too freaking cold to age meat. And this is just a great tip for those of you who live down south in the States, for example, who are never going to get proper aging temperatures, maybe. Do it in your fridge. Your fridge, generally speaking, unless you're doing some kind of crazy settings or whatever, its default is going to be around 4 degrees Celsius or 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's pretty much the top end of ideal aging temperatures. So as long as you got space for those birds, stuff them in there and you can age them in a fridge, no problem whatsoever. I do it all the time. So it doesn't exactly matter where you do it. What matters is the temperatures, and whether you're hanging the bird outdoors, like I do a lot of the time, or whether you got to age that bird in the fridge, like I know a lot of you are going to have to do because the ambient temperatures in your area are just too warm to do it outdoors. The most important things you have to remember are not to pluck or gut it first. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Leave every single feather on that thing, and certainly don't put a great big hole in it and gut it and allow bacteria to get to the inside of the bird, which will spoil a whole lot quicker than it takes to age your meat. And I know people are always skeptical about this part of the process, and I understand why. It seems a little bit counterintuitive to not gut the bird. It feels like a food safety faux pas or something like that. But trust me, leaving the bird closed, leaving all the feathers on it, are the key to the whole process. Trust your ancestors. Trust the old timers. They had it right the first time round. Today, we get fear-mongered about food safety. A lot of that is just marketing bullshit, if you ask me. It keeps you buying things over and over again that maybe you don't need to. That's maybe just one example of why these big corporations do this stuff. But there is good bacteria. It can help you. It can improve the quality of your food, and that's exactly what you're doing when you're hanging a bird. Trust me, I've been doing this with every single bird that I've shot. 4 years, I've never been sick once. I've only had better and better results in the kitchen. And right now I want to zoom in a little bit on some of the nerdy science stuff to prove to you why this stuff works and why the traditions were right all along. So firstly, if you're eating a bird day of, the day you shot it, you're eating meat that is way less tender than it ought to be. All muscle tissue goes through a process called rigor mortis, right? And you know what this is. It's when the muscles tense up and get really stiff, you know? That's why we call a dead body a stiff, is because they get real stiff, right? So if you're eating any animal in the peak of its rigor mortis, you're not doing yourself any favors in the kitchen. When you allow that bird to hang and properly age for a few days or longer, depending on the situation, two really important things start to happen. The rigor mortis inside that meat will eventually resolve or let go over time, but you gotta give it time to get there. And once the rigor mortis is done, enzymes inside the meat will slowly begin to break down the muscle fibers in that meat and make it a whole lot more tender. Now that process can take a matter of hours at the upper end of that temperature range, and it can take days at the lower end of that temperature range. And a second really important thing is going to start to happen as that aging process continues. The capillary blood inside the meat of this bird is slowly going to start draining out of that meat. And that's going to result in a milder flavor and just a better, richer, more complex flavor profile that we're going to interpret as good. And this is especially important for folks you're feeding game meat to who are worried about a gamey flavor or a flavor that's too strong. And I hear this all the time about game meat. Whenever you hear that, it means someone didn't work clean or they didn't properly age their meat, because you can get rid of all of that with this one simple step. Hang that little bastard by the neck. It's going to get more tender and it's going to taste better. Now, guys, there is one caveat of properly aging your meat in a bird with the guts in like this. If you are a person who likes to eat the organs, like I've eaten duck livers many times. I find them really good. I eat the heart all the time. Even the little kidneys and some other parts of the animal I feed to my dog and cats, etc. And they love it, and you could eat them too. I've certainly eaten them a lot of times. But when you're aging a bird, guts in like this for days at a time, this particular Drake Mallard has been hanging for 7 days, I shit you not. Okay, those organs inside will start to go bad before the meat is ready, or at least to the point where I like it. Okay, and that's a personal preference. I'll talk more about that in a bit. So the caveat is, if you like the organs, if you like the offal of animals, you're probably gonna lose it in this process. So I just wanted to point it out. You definitely aren't gonna get the liver or many of the soft tissue organs, but you can get a nice aged heart out of there. The heart's a muscle like any other muscle. It really does benefit from this process. Believe it or not, you just got to wash it thoroughly and cook it thoroughly, and you'll get a really tasty little duck heart. Sometimes I make plates of them when I got a whole limit going. I love eating duck hearts. You can save the gizzard if you're a gizzard person and you know how to clean it properly, etc. Maybe if you'd like in the future, let me know in the comments. I can do a whole video on eating waterfowl and upland game bird gizzards. I've eaten tons of them. I used to dehydrate them for my dog when she was still alive. My cat loves them. So a lot of times, even when I don't eat that gizzard, I'll cook it and chop it up raw even for my little cat, and he'll devour that stuff. He loves it. Okay, but I want to let you know, most of the other organs you should chuck. So guys, I got to get a move on here. I need to process this duck. We've got really cold temperatures coming tonight. It's going to get real cold in this porch. This guy's already been hanging for 7 days, and that's right about the window that I like it. I'll talk to you more about timing and how long you ought to hang birds, or how long I like to do it, etc. But now is the time. I gotta pluck this guy, process it. I'm not eating it tonight. It's going in the freezer, but I'm gonna show you all that. I'm gonna show you what it looks like on the inside, and that there's nothing to be scared of. But let's get these feathers off. And I know a lot of guys don't pluck out birds anymore, but you should get into the habit. You're wasting a lot of good meat otherwise. And there's our little buddy all plucked out. And I know this is a step that most modern hunters skip, unfortunately, and it really is a shame. A roasted wild duck in the oven really is an event in my kitchen. I love them. I eat them all year long. We're going to freeze and tag and bag this guy, and I might eat this guy out in the springtime. I don't know when I'm going to eat it. But this leads me also to my last point about aging the bird with the guts in. I don't know the science on it. I'm not sure exactly what happens, and I've tried to look it up, and there doesn't seem to be a good answer. But aging the bird with the guts in it does something kind of magical. I've never found a really good description for what that aging with the guts in does to the flavor of the duck, but let me describe it this way. It just like deepens the flavor in a way that I love, that I crave. It's probably why wild ducks are some of my favorite food. So rant over. I just wanted to put that out there. If you're not taking the time to age your birds and pluck them and roast them whole, you are missing out. Just those 2 little pieces of meat on the breast, in my opinion, are just one little part of a duck. There's so much more good meat on there to experience in the kitchen. There's nothing to clean in a bird. I'm going to put it on the time lapse, and then I'm going to give you a look inside so you can compare this duck to maybe one that you've gutted that wasn't aged, and see that there's almost no difference whatsoever. Then we'll tag it and bag it, wrap it up. And if you're breasting out birds because you think cleaning them's too much of a chore, honestly, you're just being lazy, bud. And there you have it. Nothing to that. That took all of 1 minute. I'll try and get some better light on this to show you, but you know, this looks perfect. And I'll tell you another thing about the aging that I just noticed now. I mean, I think I just knew this intuitively because I've done it so many times. It's so much easier to actually remove the guts. They're just like not as well fixed in there. It's so much easier to scrape the little lungs out of the bottom of the rib cage under there, etc. There are some advantages just in the cleaning process when you're aging. And yeah, I guess it's a little gnarlier. It doesn't smell as good as maybe a super fresh one, but those don't smell good either. So let me get that under some nice cold water, rinse her off, get her all ready, and I'll meet you in the kitchen. We'll wrap her up. And look who's waiting on the counter for that perfectly aged duck. Dumbass. All right, final step in this process, and this is probably a good time for me to answer the inevitable questions I'm going to get about how long exactly must you do this and all that kind of stuff. So let me qualify this whole part of this discussion by saying there's a reason that I said off the top it's an art and a science. The art part is kind of part personal taste of how you like things to taste and sort of part the conditions that you get. So with a mallard and a drake that size, like this is all bird dependent too. My like ideal window that I like, because I like strong flavored things and I like those deep, rich flavors, I'd let this guy hang for 5 to 7 days easily. I've done it much longer. You might not like that as much. You might think that after 3 or 4 days, it's perfect, and that's fine. And that also is entirely dependent on the temperatures you have. But I would say for mallards, for ducks this size, and this goes for, you know, pintails and black ducks and redheads and pretty much anything else this size, yeah, that sort of 5 to 7 day window is where I like it. If we're talking about wood ducks or little teal or something like that, sometimes I only hang them for a day or 2 or 3. And the other nice thing about aging birds in this way means that you don't have to process them right away, and you can do other stuff and kind of get prepped and ready for when this time comes. And, you know, I only have one bird right now. I'm not having a great season, but a lot of times I've got 5 or 6 of them I've got to process, and it's nice to do a little prep and to have a little time to not have to like jump into that when you get home from a long day's hunt, etc. So that's a little added bonus there for you. The timing is really up to you. Play it on the safe side when you're starting. If you get experience with it and you like the way this tastes, and I guarantee you're gonna. If you love tender meat, you haven't been eating them right all along if you're not doing this process or something similar. Okay, so do it in the fridge if you're worried about it. Okay, that would be my first recommendation to you. You're going to get really stable temperatures that aren't going to move much at all compared to outdoor aging or hanging in a porch the way I do it. Start off in the fridge. Second, play it on the safe side. When you're first starting out, you know, try aging it for at least 2 or 3 days. Let that rigor mortis let go. Let it get tender. See how you like the flavor. If you like that flavor, let it go even deeper. Let it go even longer. And my guess is that if you get into this the way that I do every single bird like this, just to reiterate that point and drive it home. You're probably gonna get a taste for it, and you're gonna probably want to let those birds go longer and longer and longer in safe conditions, because it only improves the quality of the meat at the end of the day. Guys, thanks for hanging out all the way to the end of the video. I hope you learned something new about aging birds. I hope you give it a shot. If you do it how I showed you in this video, I don't think you'll regret it. And hey, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Chuck a like up on here if you did get something out of it. Click the bell icon for notifications and drop a comment down below. Catch you next week. Cheers.